The Federal Reserve went silent at 4:47 p.m. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that did not belong inside a building where money never slept, where machines counted wealth behind glass, where armed guards moved with practiced discipline, and every footstep echoed against marble like a warning. Clara Whitmore felt it before she understood it. Her fingers were resting on the edge of the VIP vault counter, one hand over a sealed currency ledger, the other beside a black security phone that had not rung all day. Beyond the reinforced windows, the late New York afternoon had turned the city silver. Rain streaked down the glass. Traffic glowed red and gold beneath the storm. Then every guard in the room reached for his radio at the same time. The vault doors locked. The emergency lights shifted from white to crimson, and through the rain-blurred security monitors, Clara saw them. Black, armored vehicles. Not police. Not federal. Unmarked. They surrounded the Federal Reserve Bank of New York in a perfect circle, blocking every entrance, every exit, every street-facing lane, like the city itself had been seized by a silent army. A senior guard whispered, "No one move." But no one had to say it. Everyone was already frozen. The main lobby doors opened. A man, in a black tailored coat, walked in alone. He did not hurry. He did not look impressed by the alarms. He did not flinch when 24 armed federal security officers aimed their weapons at him. He moved like the building belonged to him. Tall, broad-shouldered, calm, in a way that made panic feel childish. His dark hair was damp from the rain, his face carved with cold restraint, his eyes black enough to make every light around him seem weak. Clara knew his name before anyone said it. Everyone in New York knew his name. Dante Moretti, the man Wall Street feared in whispers. The man politicians denied meeting. The man whose empire moved through luxury hotels, shipping routes, private banks, nightclubs, ports, and funerals. The Mafia Boss who had never once been photographed smiling. He reached the VIP vault counter and stopped in front of Clara. For one breath, he looked only at her, not the guards, not the cameras. Here. Then he placed something on the polished black counter. A $1 bill, torn down one side, darkly stained. Old blood browned into the paper. Clara's breath caught. Dante's voice was calm, low, and lethal. "I need the matching serial number bill from your high-security vault." The red alarms screamed above them. The vault director stepped forward, pale and sweating. "Mr. Moretti, that is impossible. Currency matching at that level requires authorization, time, federal." Dante did not look away from Clara. "You have 10 minutes." The room went colder. Clara forced herself to speak. "And if we don't find it?" For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Fine. Possession. Then it vanished behind steel. "If you don't find it in 10 minutes, he said, "this entire city's financial system burns." No one breathed. Clara looked down at the blood-stained dollar, and on its torn edge, half hidden beneath the stain, she saw something that made her heart stop. A tiny handwritten letter C, the same letter her dead father used to mark every birthday card he had ever given her. Her normal life ended in that moment, and Dante Moretti knew it before she did. Clara Whitmore had spent 6 years becoming invisible inside one of the most powerful buildings in America. She was good at her job because she understood silence. She understood pressure. She understood that fear only became dangerous when it reached the hands. Her hands never shook. Not during counterfeit investigations. Not during international reserve transfers. Not when billionaires lost patience behind private glass. Not when federal auditors tried to intimidate younger employees into mistakes. Clara had built her life around precision. Her apartment was small and clean. Her bills were paid on time. Her phone contacts were few. Her evenings were quiet. She ate dinner alone, read old novels, called no one after 10, and never walked home the same way twice. People thought she was disciplined. They did not know she was afraid. They did not know her father, Elias Whitmore, had died when she was 17 after leaving behind nothing but debts, rumors, and one final warning written on the back of a torn envelope. Trust no one who speaks about safety. For years, Clara believed he had been paranoid, until Dante Moretti placed that dollar bill in front of her. "Miss Whitmore," the vault director hissed. "Step back!" But Clara did not move. She stared at the serial number. Only half remained. The other half had been torn away. Dante leaned closer, just enough for her to catch the scent of rain, smoke, and expensive wool. "You know what it is. I know it's evidence," she said. His mouth barely moved. "It's a grave." The words slid under her skin. Behind him, the security team shouted into radios. Somewhere above, steel shutters dropped over exterior windows. The Federal Reserve had emergency procedures for terrorist threats, internal breaches, cyber attacks, power failures, chemical incidents, even hostage scenarios. But it had no procedure for Dante Moretti walking calmly into the VIP vault with a blood-stained dollar bill. Clara swallowed. "You don't get to come in here and threaten a city." "I didn't come for the city." "Then why are you here?" His gaze darkened. "For you." The words struck harder than the alarm. Clara stepped back. Dante's jaw tightened, as if he regretted saying it. Or worse, as if he did not regret it at all. The vault director grabbed the phone. "We need federal response in the currency archive now. Code black. Code." The line died. All screens flickered. Every monitor in the room went black, except one. On it appeared a single live feed. Clara's apartment. Her kitchen window. Her tiny dining table. Her blue mug beside the sink. A cold wave passed through her. Then the camera angle changed. Her bedroom door. Her hallway. Her front lock. Someone had been inside. Watching. Dante's face turned murderous. "That wasn't me," he said. Clara looked at him sharply. "Why would I believe you?" "Because if I had cameras in your apartment, you would never know." The terrifying part was that he said it like a fact, not a threat. The screen changed again. A man in a grey suit stood inside Clara's living room, holding a phone to his ear. His face was partially hidden, but his voice came through the vault speakers. "Tell Moretti the girl dies if he opens the archive." The room erupted. Clara could not hear the shouting anymore. She could only hear one word. Girl. Not woman. Girl. As if whoever this man was had known her long before she became Clara Whitmore, Federal Reserve teller. Dante's hand closed over the blood-stained dollar. For the first time, his calm cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, only in the tightening of his fingers, the controlled violence in his shoulders, the way the air around him seemed to darken. He looked at Clara. "You're coming with me." "No, this building is compromised. This building is the Federal Reserve, and today that means nothing." She lifted her chin. "I don't take orders from men who storm into my workplace with threats." A faint, dangerous admiration touched his eyes. "No," he said quietly. "You never did." Clara. Froze. What does that mean? Before he could answer, the vault doors thundered. Not from outside, from beneath. A lower-level access alarm flashed. Someone had entered through the sub-basement currency destruction tunnels. Dante turned slightly, placing himself between Clara and the sound before any guard moved. The gesture was instinctive, protective, possessive. It frightened her more than the threat, because he had done it, as if her life mattered more than his own. The first explosion was muffled, deep below the building. Not enough to destroy the structure, but enough to kill the lights. Darkness swallowed the vault. Red emergency strobes began pulsing. People screamed. Clara felt a hand close around her wrist. Dante's. Warm. Firm. Unshaking. "Stay behind me." She tried to pull away. He leaned close, his voice against her ear. "Be angry later. Survive now." Then the lower corridor doors burst open. Men, in tactical black, entered through smoke. Not Dante's men. Rivals. The first shots shattered the glass partitions. Dante moved, like violence had been built into his bones. He pulled Clara down behind the marble counter, shielding her with his body as bullets struck steel and stone. His coat swept over her. His arm braced beside her head. The scent of smoke and rain wrapped around her until the entire world narrowed to his breathing above her. Clara should have hated him. Instead, with the red lights flashing across his face and his body between her and death, she felt something worse. She felt safe. Dante's men breached from the lobby seconds later. The vault became chaos. Shouting. Smoke. Boots. Alarms. The metallic crash of security gates. Dante did not let go of Clara. Not once. When the shooting stopped, 3 rival attackers were pinned to the floor by Moretti guards. Federal security stood stunned, disarmed not by force but by confusion. No one knew who had saved whom. Dante looked down at Clara. A thin cut marked his cheek. His eyes searched her face with a hunger too controlled to be called panic. "Are you hurt?" "No." His thumb moved toward her cheek, stopping just before touching her. That restraint did something to her chest. Then he looked away, cold again. "We have 7 minutes." Clara stared at him. "You still care about the dollar?" "That dollar is why they came." "Who are they?" Dante's eyes returned to hers. "The men who killed your father." For 6 years, Clara had imagined many versions of her father's death. Un accident, a robbery, a mistake, a scandal he had brought upon himself. But not this. Never this. Dante dragged one of the captured men by his collar and forced him onto his knees in front of the counter. The man was bleeding from a split lip, trembling despite trying not to. "Who sent you?" Dante asked. The man laughed weakly. "You're too late." Dante crouched. The room seemed to contract around him. "I asked once because she is standing here." The man looked at Clara. A cruel smile spread across his face. "Little Clara Whitmore, your father begged, you know, not for himself. For you." Clara's body went cold. Dante moved so fast she barely saw it. He slammed the man against the counter, not enough to kill him, but enough to erase the smile. "Say her name again," Dante whispered. "And I will forget she is watching." Clara grabbed his sleeve. "Stop." The word should not have mattered, but Dante stopped. Every man in the room saw it. The most feared Mafia boss in New York, halted by one trembling command from a Federal Reserve teller. His eyes remained on the attacker, but his body obeyed her. The attacker coughed. "Sloan. Victor Sloan. He said the girl would lead you to the second bill." The vault director went pale. Clara noticed. So did Dante. "You know that name," she said. The director stepped back. "No." Dante looked at 2 of his men. "Lock him down." Federal security protested, but weakly. Everyone had seen the live feed. Everyone understood the building had been breached from inside. Clara turned to the director. "What is in the archive?" He said nothing. Dante answered instead. "Destroyed currency records, seized counterfeit evidence, emergency reserve packages, and sealed personal effects from investigations that were never supposed to exist." Clara stared at him. "How do you know that?" "Because your father helped build the system." The floor seemed to tilt. "My father worked in municipal accounting." "No," Dante said. "That was the story they gave you after he died." Clara's throat tightened. All at once, memories rearranged themselves. Her father coming home late. Phone calls he ended when she entered the room. The locked metal box beneath his bed. The birthday cards with tiny letters written near the stamps. Trust no one who speaks about safety. What was he? She whispered. Dante's expression changed. Not softer. He was not soft. But something wounded moved behind his eyes. He was the only honest man in a room full of thieves. The second explosion hit closer. Dust fell from the ceiling. Dante took Clara's hand and pulled her toward the private archive corridor. This time, she went with him. The high-security currency archive beneath the Federal Reserve felt less like a vault and more like a tomb built for money. Rows of sealed drawers stretched behind glass. Steel cabinets lined walls of concrete and brass. Old bills, destroyed bills, contaminated bills, counterfeit plates, emergency reserve notes. Every kind of currency with a story too dangerous for public record rested in the cold light. Clara followed Dante through the red-lit corridor, surrounded by Moretti men and federal guards, who no longer knew whether to arrest him or rely on him. Her wrist still tingled where he had held her. She hated that she noticed. "You said my father helped build this system," she said. Dante keyed in a code at a sealed archive terminal. "How do you know the code?" she demanded. He did not look back. "Because he gave it to me. My father gave you access to the Federal Reserve. He gave me half of everything." Clara stopped. Dante turned. The alarm painted his face in red and shadow. "How old were you?" she asked. "When I met him? When you started lying to me?" His jaw flexed. "I was 22. Your father found me after my family was slaughtered in a warehouse fire staged by Victor Sloan. I was supposed to die with them." The cold anger in his voice made Clara's breath slow. "Your father hid me, fed me, gave me evidence. He said if I wanted revenge, I could become a monster. But if I wanted justice, I had to learn patience." "And what did you choose?" Dante's eyes held hers. "Both." She should have looked away. She did not. The archive terminal beeped. "Access granted." A sealed drawer unlocked somewhere in the back wall. Dante led her toward it. Inside lay a small, transparent evidence case containing another torn $1 bill, clean, untouched. Its serial number completed the blood-stained one in Dante's hand. Clara reached for it, but Dante caught her wrist. "Don't touch it." "Why?" "Because once you do, the people who buried your father's truth will stop pretending they only want the money." Clara stared at the bill. "What is hidden in it?" Dante placed the bloody half beside the clean half. Together, the serial numbers aligned, but the handwritten marks on the torn edges formed something else. Coordinates. And beneath the tiny C Clara had noticed was another letter. Tu. M. C. Mi. Clara and Moretti. Her pulse stumbled. "Why are our initials on this?" Dante said nothing. "Don't." His name felt strange in her mouth. His eyes lifted slowly. "Your father made 2 promises before he died," Dante said. "One was to expose the men who turned the city's financial system into a laundering machine for blood money. And the second? To keep you alive." Clara's voice dropped. "Why would that involve you?" Dante looked at the joined bills, like they were a wound reopened. "Because he arranged for me to marry you." The world stopped. For one insane moment. The alarms, the guards, the smoke, the blood, the entire Federal Reserve disappeared. Clara laughed once, breathless and disbelieving. "No." Dante's expression remained still. "No," she repeated. "Absolutely not. It was not legal. Not binding. Not then. Not then." His gaze darkened. "In Mafia terms, it was a vow." Clara stepped back from him. "I was 17, and I stayed away. You watched me. I protected you. You stalked me." His silence confirmed too much. Anger rose hot through the fear. "My apartment. My roots. My job. You knew all of it. Yes. Did you choose this position for me too? No. She searched his face. Did you? His voice lowered. I removed 3 men who tried to stop you from getting it. Her stomach turned. You manipulated my life. I kept your life from ending. That is not the same thing. No, Dante said. It isn't. The honesty cut deeper than denial. For a moment, Clara saw the shape of him clearly. Not a savior, not a villain. Something more dangerous. A man who had built his entire life around revenge and called protection the gentler name for control. She should have run, but the archive doors sealed behind them. A new voice came through the intercom. Smooth, male, familiar to everyone who had ever watched a financial news panel. Victor, Sloane, Miss Whitmore, Mr. Moretti. How poetic that you found each other in the same vault where your father ruined everything. Dante's face became stone. Clara looked up at the ceiling speaker. Sloane continued, amused. I suggest you bring me both bills, Clara. Alone, unless you want every account tied to Moretti Holdings frozen, every federal feed corrupted, and every private file about your father released by morning, Clara whispered. He can do that, Dante said. He already started. A nearby monitor flickered on. News. Feeds. Breaking reports. Bank outages across Manhattan. Trading delays. Rumors of a cyber attack. The city was beginning to panic. Sloane's voice sharpened. 10 minutes, Clara. Come to the East Service entrance. Bring the bills. Leave Moretti behind. Dante laughed softly. It was not amusement. It was a death sentence. He thinks I will let you walk into his hands. Clara looked at the $2 bills. Then at the man who had terrified a city to find them. Maybe you don't get to decide what I do. Dante stepped closer. Too close. The red lights turned his eyes almost black. I decide when the choice is between your anger and your funeral. Clara's breath caught. You don't own me. His gaze dropped to her mouth for half a second, then returned to her eyes with brutal restraint. No, he said. That is the problem. The words hung between them. Dangerous. Intimate. Unfinished. Then a federal guard raised his weapon at Dante's back. Clara saw the movement before anyone else. Dante. He turned, but not fast enough. The guard fired. Clara shoved to Dante's side. The shot struck the archive cabinet behind them, showering sparks and metal fragments across the floor. Dante caught Clara before she fell, one arm around her waist, his body twisting to shield her. His men took the guard down instantly, but Dante did not look at him. He looked at Clara. Fury and fear warred across his face. Never do that again. You're welcome. His hand tightened against her back. You could have been hit. So could you. I don't matter. The words came too quickly, too honestly. Clara's anger faltered. For the first time, she saw it. Naught softness. Damage. Dante Moretti did not fear death. He feared surviving another person he could not save. Before she could speak, the captured guard began laughing from the floor. Sloane said she'd protect you, even after everything. Clara went still. What does that mean? The guard smiled through pain. Ask Moretti who signed the order to erase your father's name. Dante's face changed. Just enough. Clara saw it. Her heart dropped. Don't you? He said nothing. The guard laughed harder. Ask him why your father was alone the night he died. Clara stepped away from Dante. The space between them felt colder than the vault. What did you do? Dante's voice was quiet. Clara, what did you do? He looked at her, as if every word would cost him blood. I was supposed to meet him that night. Her breath broke. He died. Waiting for you? Dante closed his eyes once. Yes, the betrayal was not clean. It did not arrive as hatred. It arrived as grief, finding a new target. Clara slapped him. The sound cracked across the archive. No one moved. Dante accepted it without blinking. "You let him die," she whispered. "I was ambushed. You let him die. I killed every man involved. That didn't bring him back." "No," Dante said, voice rough at last. "It didn't." Clara grabbed the evidence case. This time Dante let her. She walked toward the sealed exit. "Open the door. Clara, open it, or I will scream until every federal officer in this building remembers you are a criminal." Dante stared at her. His men waited. Finally, he nodded. The door opened. Clara walked out with the bills in her hand and heartbreak burning behind her ribs. She did not see Dante follow, but she felt him, like a storm, refusing to leave the sky. The East Service entrance was a narrow tunnel beneath the building, where armored transport crews usually moved sealed currency containers into secure trucks. Tonight, it was empty, except for rainwater leaking down the concrete walls and the distant sound of sirens above the street. Clara walked alone. At least, she appeared to. She knew Dante was somewhere in the shadows. She hated that part of her was relieved. Victor Sloan waited at the end of the tunnel, in a charcoal suit, silver-haired and elegant, with the calm confidence of a man who had never paid personally for anything he destroyed. Beside him stood a young boy, maybe 5 years old, dark hair, wide, frightened eyes, a small hand clutching a stuffed rabbit. Clara stopped breathing. Sloan smiled. "Insurance." Clara's voice shook. "Who is he?" The boy looked at her. His eyes were familiar, in a way that made no sense. Sloan placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is Nicholas." The tunnel seemed to narrow. "Whose child is he?" Sloan smiled wider. "Your father's last secret." Clara's knees nearly gave. "No." "Oh, yes." Elias Whitmore was very sentimental for a man hiding evidence against half the city. "A second family?" "No. Nothing so crude. The boy is your nephew, your brother's son." "I don't have a brother. You did." The words cut through her. Sloan tilted his head. "Your father sent him into witness protection before you were old enough to understand. Unfortunately, secrets have a way of becoming useful." The boy trembled. Clara took one step forward. Sloan's guard raised a weapon. Dante emerged from the darkness behind Clara, like a nightmare given shape. "Move that weapon away from the child." Sloan's smile faded. "Moretti. Still pretending this is love?" Dante's face was deathly calm. "This is the last time you speak in front of her." Clara glanced at him. His eyes did not leave Sloan. Sloan laughed. "She knows, doesn't she, that you failed her father, that you watched her life from the shadows. Did you tell her about the apartment across from hers, the rainstorm in March, the man you buried under the pier because he followed her home?" Clara's stomach twisted. Dante did not deny it. Sloan continued. "Did you tell her you killed your own cousin for suggesting she would make good leverage?" Dante's voice was low. "He said worse than that." A chill passed through Clara. She should have recoiled. Instead, she looked at the child. Nicholas, a nephew she never knew existed. Another life built on lies. Sloan extended his hand. "The bills, Clara." She held them tighter. "What do they unlock?" Sloan's eyes gleamed. "A ledger. Your father hid the original transaction map inside a private safe beneath the old Moretti Bank. Every laundering route, every judge, every senator, every rival family, every federal signature. Enough to destroy empires. And you want to destroy Dante. I want to own what his father died trying to control." Dante moved slightly, placing his body nearer Clara's. Sloan noticed. "Oh, this is delicious." The butcher finally found a weakness. Dante's expression did not change, but Clara saw his right hand flex. Sloan's gaze slid to her. "Give me the bills, and I give you the boy. Refuse, and I release the city into chaos and let the world blame Moretti." Clara looked at Dante. He gave the smallest shake of his head. Do not. But Clara thought of her father, of all the men deciding for her, of every secret wrapped around her life like a chain. She stepped forward. Dante's voice cut through the tunnel. Clara. She stopped. There was something in the way he said her name. Not command. Not possession. Fear. She turned. His eyes held hers. Raw beneath the control. If you walk to him, I will burn every rule I still have. Her throat tightened. You threatened the city for $1. No, he said. I threatened the city because it was the only way to get to you before he did. The truth landed slowly. The armored vehicles. The alarm. The impossible demand. It had never been about the bill alone. It had been a rescue disguised as a siege. Sloane's patience snapped. Enough. He shoved Nicholas toward one guard and reached into his coat. Dante moved. The tunnel erupted. Clara dropped to the ground, pulling Nicholas down with her as Dante's men flooded from the side corridors. Federal tactical teams breached from behind Sloane's convoy. Someone inside the reserve had finally chosen a side. Dante reached Clara through smoke and chaos. A guard aimed at her. Dante stepped into the line of fire and took the impact against his armored vest with a grunt, then drove the attacker back with terrifying precision. Clara clutched Nicholas against her chest. The boy sobbed into her coat. Dante looked down at them. His face softened for less than a second. Then Sloane grabbed Clara from behind. Cold metal pressed near her side. Dante went still. Every weapon in the tunnel shifted. Sloane dragged Clara backward. Drop them, he ordered. Dante's gun lowered immediately. Clara's heart lurched. For here, without hesitation, Sloane smiled against her ear. There it is, the great Dante Moretti, obedient at last. Dante's eyes locked on Clara's. No panic, only promise. Let her go, he said. And lose my leverage. You never had leverage. Sloane laughed. Then Clara felt something in Dante's gaze move past her. Not to Sloane, to the boy. Nicholas, still on the ground, had crawled near the fallen stuffed rabbit. Inside its torn seam, something metallic glinted. A small, old key. Clara understood. Her father had hidden more than one secret. She slammed her heel down onto Sloane's foot, twisted hard, and drove her elbow back. He cursed, grip loosening just enough. Dante crossed the distance like a shadow. He tore Sloane away from her and slammed him into the concrete wall. Not wild, controlled. Worse. Sloane gasped, suddenly stripped of all elegance. Dante leaned close. You built a kingdom on dead men and frightened children. His voice dropped. You touched mine. Mine. The word should have angered Clara. Instead, after everything, it broke something open, because she heard what he meant. Not property, not possession, belonging, family. The tunnel, filled with federal agents. Sloane was seized, shouting names, threats, deals. Men like him always believed the world was a room where money could buy another exit. But this time, every camera was live, every confession recorded. Every transaction triggered by the joint dollar bills had opened the hidden ledger. Across New York, bank outages became evidence trails. Frozen accounts led to shell companies. Shell companies led to judges, senators, private banks, rival families, offshore trusts. Victor Sloane did not fall alone. He pulled half the city's darkness down with him, and in the middle of the storm, Dante Moretti stood in the Federal Reserve tunnel, with Clara's blood-stained dollar in one hand and her trembling fingers in the other. Neither of them spoke. Not yet. Some truths were too large for sirens. By midnight, New York looked like a city holding its breath. Rain turned the streets black and reflective. Helicopters circled above lower Manhattan. News vans crowded barricades. The Federal Reserve remained sealed behind federal floodlights and armed guards. But the story had already escaped. A mafia boss had stormed the Federal Reserve. A teller had uncovered the largest financial conspiracy in modern New York history. Victor Sloan had been arrested, and somewhere between those headlines, Clara Whitmore had become the most dangerous woman in the city. Dante took her to a safe house above a private library in an old brownstone on the Upper East Side. Not a penthouse, not a nightclub, not a mafia fortress. A quiet room full of books, rain tapping against tall windows, and a fireplace burning low behind iron glass. Nicholas slept on a sofa beneath a wool blanket, still clutching the rabbit that had carried the key. Clara stood near the window, arms wrapped around herself. Dante remained by the door. He had not crossed the room since they arrived. For once, he looked uncertain where he was allowed to stand. "You should sit," he said. "You should stop telling me what to do." A faint shadow crossed his mouth. Not a smile. Almost. Then it vanished. A long silence stretched. Clara watched rain slide down the glass. Was any of it real? Dante's voice was quiet. "All of it. You don't know what I mean." "I do." She turned. His coat was gone. His shirt was open at the collar. A dark bruise had begun forming where the bullet hit his vest. He looked less untouchable now, but not less dangerous. More dangerous. Maybe. Because now, she could see the man beneath the myth. "You watched me for years," she said. "You shaped things around me. You decided what dangers I knew about, and what dangers I didn't. You let me live in a fake peace." "I know. Don't just say that." His jaw tightened. "What do you want me to say, Clara? That I regret keeping you alive. I want you to admit you didn't only protect me." His eyes darkened. She stepped closer. "You needed me untouched by the world that ruined you. You needed me safe because my father asked you. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being duty." The fire cracked softly. Dante's face became colder, as if he could freeze confession before it escaped. "You should be afraid of me." "I am." His eyes lifted. Clara's voice softened despite herself. But not only afraid. That wounded him more than anger. He looked away. "I do not know how to want something without destroying the world around it." The confession was barely above a whisper. Clara felt it in her chest. Dante continued, each word controlled. "Your father trusted me with your life before I deserved trust from anyone. I stayed away because I knew what I was. Then men came near you. Threats appeared. Sloan moved closer. And every year, staying away became another kind of lie. Why didn't you tell me? Because once I entered your life, Clara, I knew I would not leave it cleanly." She should have walked away. Instead, she remembered his hand stopping before touching her cheek, his body shielding hers in the vault, his weapon lowering the instant Sloan held her, his face when she said his name. "You don't get to own my choices," she said. "No. You don't get to decide who I become. No. If I stay near you, it will be because I choose it." Dante looked at her then. The room changed. The air tightened, intimate, and dangerous. "And would you?" he asked. Clara's heartbeat became painfully loud. "Would I what? Choose to stay near me?" The question was too honest, too naked, beneath all that power. Before she could answer, Nicholas stirred on the sofa. Clara turned toward him. The boy opened his eyes and whispered, "Is he bad?" Dante went completely still. Clara looked from the child to the man who had terrified the Federal Reserve and nearly shattered a city to save them. She walked to Nicholas and knelt beside him. "Yes," she said softly. "Sometimes." Dante's face closed. Then Clara added, "But tonight he protected us." Nicholas looked at Dante. "Are you family?" The word landed like a match in a dark room. Dante did not answer. Clara did. We're going to figure that out. Dante looked at her with something close to devastation. And for the first time, Clara understood that devotion from a man like him would never be gentle in the ordinary way. It would be shelter with locked doors, fire against anyone who came too close, a promise sharp enough to draw blood. The next 3 days became a war without open battle. Victor Sloan's arrest shattered alliances across New York. Rival families denied involvement, then mobilized quietly. Federal agencies raided offices. Judges resigned overnight. A senator checked into a private hospital and refused visitors. 2 banks suspended internal executives. Luxury hotels emptied of men who had spent years pretending not to know each other. Clara testified behind closed doors. Dante did not enter the federal building with her, but every morning, a black SUV waited at the curb. Every evening, the same SUV returned. He never called, never texted, never demanded, but he was there, across the street, in the rain, under the same black umbrella, watching the entrance until she came out. On the 4th evening, Clara walked across the street instead of getting into the federal car. Dante stood beside the SUV, rain threading silver through his dark hair. "You're making the agents nervous," she said. "They should be. I told them you wouldn't hurt them. That was generous." "Was it wrong?" His eyes held hers. "Not unless they touch you." She hated the shiver that moved through her. "Don't. I know." "No, you don't. You say things like that as if they're normal. They are normal to me. That's the problem." He looked down, almost ashamed, and Clara's anger weakened again. A camera flash exploded across the street. Then another. Paparazzi. Reporters. Someone shouted, "Clara, are you involved with Dante Moretti?" Another voice. "Did the Mafia Boss use you to breach the Federal Reserve?" Dante's expression turned lethal. Clara felt the old instinct to hide. Then a reporter shouted, "Were you his lover before or after the financial attack?" Dante moved forward. Clara grabbed his hand. He stopped instantly. The cameras captured it. His black, gloved hand, her bare fingers around his. The entire sidewalk froze. Clara realized what she had done. Dante looked at their joined hands, then at her. His voice was low enough only she could hear. "Let go now, if you don't want the world to misunderstand." Clara looked at the cameras, the agents, the rain, the city hungry for scandal. Then she tightened her grip. Let them misunderstand. Something dangerous flared in his eyes. Not triumph. Need. He opened the SUV door and shielded her from the cameras with his body as she got inside. By morning, their photograph was everywhere. The Fed teller and the Mafia King. Sloan's remaining allies saw it too. That night, they came for Clara. Not at the safe house. Not at the courthouse. At the hospital, Nicholas had developed a fever. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to frighten a child who had spent too many days surrounded by armed men. Clara insisted on taking him to a private pediatric wing under federal supervision. Dante objected. Clara overruled him. He came anyway. The hospital room was warm and softly lit, with cartoons playing silently on a wall-mounted screen. Nicholas slept after the doctor left. Clara sat beside him, exhausted, one hand resting near his blanket. Dante stood by the window, watching the parking garage below. "You haven't slept," she said. "Neither have you. I'm not running a criminal empire." His eyes flicked to her. "No. You're inheriting a war." Clara leaned back. "I don't want a war. Wars rarely ask permission." The room fell quiet. She looked at him in the soft hospital light. He seemed out of place here, too dark for the pale walls, too controlled for the fragile peace. "Did you ever want something normal?" she asked. Dante's gaze remained on the window. "When I was young, what was it?" A long pause. "A house with noise in it." Clara's chest tightened. Children? Maybe. A wife? His reflection in the glass went still. Yes. The answer changed the room. Clara looked away first, but the silence between them was no longer empty. It was full of almosts. Almost touching. Almost confessing. Almost forgiving. Then Dante's phone vibrated. He read the message. His face changed. Get away from the window. Clara stood immediately. The glass exploded inward. Dante reached her before the sound fully registered, taking her to the floor beneath him as shards rained across the hospital bed. Nicholas woke screaming. The lights died. Emergency power surged red. Dante lifted Clara and pushed her toward the bathroom. Lock the door with Nicholas. No. Clara, I am not hiding while you die outside. His eyes burned. I cannot fight if I am watching you breathe. The words broke through her. He placed Nicholas in her arms. Please. That one word undid her. She went. Behind the locked bathroom door, Clara held Nicholas against her chest while chaos thundered outside. She heard Dante's men shouting. Footsteps. Another crash. A body hitting the wall. The hospital alarm blared. Nicholas sobbed. Is he going to die? Clara pressed her cheek to his hair. No. But fear clawed at her throat. Not because Dante Moretti was a mafia boss. Because Dante was Dante. And somewhere in the darkness between terror and trust, Clara realized losing him would hurt in a way she was not ready to name. When the door finally opened, Dante stood there breathing hard, blood on his knuckles. A cut at his temple. Alive. Clara crossed the bathroom and threw her arms around him before pride could stop her. He froze, completely, as if no one had held him in years. Then his arms came around her, slowly, carefully, with devastating restraint. He did not crush her. He did not claim. He simply held her, like she was something sacred he was terrified to break. Clara closed her eyes. His voice brushed her hair. I told myself I would never touch you unless you came to me. She pulled back just enough to look at him. And now, his gaze dropped to her mouth. The world seemed to stop again. Then a nurse rushed in with federal agents, and the moment shattered. Dante stepped away, but Clara still felt his hands on her long after he released her. The assassination attempt changed everything. Clara stopped, pretending distance could keep her safe. Dante moved her and Nicholas to the Moretti estate outside the city, a candlelit mansion overlooking the Hudson, surrounded by iron gates, winter trees, and men who would die before letting danger through the door. It should have felt like a prison. Instead, it felt like a storm shelter built by a dangerous man who no longer trusted the world with her life. The estate was beautiful in a lonely way. Marble halls, dark wood, old portraits, fireplaces taller than doorways, a glass conservatory filled with white roses blooming beneath warm lights while snow fell beyond the windows. Clara hated how easily she could imagine staying. On the second night, she found a locked room at the end of the east wing. Dante had forbidden only one place. So, of course, she opened it. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them. Not intimate, not obscene, but devastating. Clara leaving work in winter. Clara buying flowers. Clara sitting alone in a diner. Clara laughing once with an elderly neighbor. Clara standing outside her father's grave. Years of her life documented in silence. On the desk lay files, threat assessments, medical reports after a minor car accident she had forgotten, names of men she had never met, crossed out in black ink, and one photograph that made her sit down hard. Dante at 17 years old, standing beside her father, bruised, hollow-eyed, alive only because Elias Whitmore had pulled him from ruin. Clara heard the door open behind her. Dante did not speak. She looked around the room, This is what you called protection? His face was unreadable. Yes. This is obsession. His voice was quiet. Yes. The honesty stole her breath. He stepped inside, but kept distance between them. I told myself it was duty, then habit, then strategy. But I knew the truth before you ever looked at me. Clara stood. And what is the truth? Dante's eyes held hers. That there is no version of my future where you are not breathing in it. The words should have terrified her. They did. But they also reached the wounded part of her that had been alone for too long. You don't know me, she whispered. I know how you take your coffee when you're sad. I know you reread the last page of books before closing them. I know you leave extra cash for waitresses even when service is bad. I know you touch your father's ring when you lie, and your left hand when you're afraid. That isn't love. No, he said. That is surveillance. Clara flinched. Dante accepted it. But when I saw you stand between me and a bullet, I understood the difference. His voice roughened. Love is not knowing everything about you. It is knowing I could lose you, even after all of it. Clara's eyes burned. For a long moment, neither moved. Then she walked to the desk, picked up the photo of young Dante and her father, and held it out. Tell me everything. So he did. He told her about the warehouse fire that killed his family, about crawling through smoke, about Elias Whitmore finding him behind a church in Queens, half dead and hunted, about the ledger, about Sloane, about Clara's hidden brother, sent away before Sloane could use him, about her brother's death, years later in witness protection, leaving Nicholas behind, about the vow Elias demanded from Dante, not marriage in romance, not ownership, protection. If anything happens to me, keep my daughter alive. Even if she hates you for how. Clara cried silently through most of it. Dante did not try to comfort her. Maybe he thought he had no right. Finally, she asked, Did my father trust you? Dante looked at the floor. He believed I could become better than revenge. And did you? No. Clara stepped closer. Dante lifted his eyes. But I might, he said. If you stay. The confession was too much, too dangerous, too beautiful in the worst possible way. Clara touched his bruised cheek. Just once. His breath stopped. The most feared man in New York stood motionless beneath her hand, as if tenderness were more dangerous than any weapon. Then he turned his face slightly into her palm. Clara whispered, I haven't forgiven you. I know. I don't trust all of you. You shouldn't, but I trust what you do when I'm in danger. His eyes closed. That was the first kiss. Not soft, not rushed. A restrained collision of grief, anger, need, and all the words they had been too proud to say. Dante kissed her like a man fighting himself. Clara kissed him like a woman choosing danger with her eyes open. And when he pulled away, his forehead rested against hers, his voice broken down to a whisper. Tell me to stop. Clara's fingers tightened in his shirt. Not yet. Outside, snow fell over the Moretti estate. Inside, the war came closer. The final betrayal arrived at dawn. Not from Sloane. Not from the rival families. From inside Dante's bloodline, Luca Moretti, Dante's cousin and second in command, opened the estate gates for Sloane's remaining men. He did it for inheritance, for power, for the old belief that Dante had become weak because he had chosen one woman's life over an empire. The attack began in the conservatory. Clara was there with Nicholas, showing him how the white roses opened under winter light when the windows shattered. Men poured through smoke. Dante's guards fell back, protecting the child first because those were Dante's orders now. Clara grabbed Nicholas and ran through the marble hall as alarms screamed through the mansion. At the grand staircase, Luca appeared, handsome, calm, almost regretful. Clara he said. "Give me the boy." She backed away. "No, he is the last loose thread. Dante will survive losing you eventually, but not if the child remains." Clara's fear turned sharp. "You don't know him at all." Luca smiled coldly. "I know him better than you. Before you, he was untouchable. Before me, he was dead and still walking." The smile vanished. A gunshot cracked from the corridor behind Luca. He turned. Dante stood at the far end of the hall. Black coat, blood on his temple, eyes empty of mercy. "Step away from them." Luca laughed once. "You see, this is what she made you. Predictable." Dante walked forward slowly. "No. She made me choose." Luca raised his weapon toward Clara. Dante fired first. The shot struck Luca's shoulder, spinning him back against the banister. Non-fatal, deliberate. Even now, Dante controlled the monster. Clara pulled Nicholas behind her. Dante reached them and touched Clara's face with one hand, fast, checking she was real. "You're hurt," she said. "It's not mine." A chandelier exploded above them. Dante shoved Clara and Nicholas beneath the staircase as glass rained across the marble. Then he turned toward the men invading his home. What followed was not a battle Clara would ever be able to fully remember, only images. Dante standing in smoke beneath a broken chandelier, black SUVs burning beyond the front gates, white roses scattered across blood-dark marble, the violence mostly hidden by shadows and snow. Nicholas crying into Clara's coat, Luca dragged away by Dante's men, alive but defeated, and Dante walking back through the ruined hall toward Clara as if every part of him existed only to reach her. He dropped to one knee in front of Nicholas first. The boy stared at him with wet eyes. "Are they gone?" Dante's voice was gentle in a way Clara had never heard. "Yes." "Will they come back?" Dante looked at Clara before answering. "No." Nicholas nodded shakily. Then, to everyone's surprise, he reached forward and wrapped his small arms around Dante's neck. Dante froze again. Clara's heart broke open. Slowly, Dante lifted one hand and held the child, not like a mafia boss, like a man being given something he never believed he deserved. Clara knelt beside them. Dante looked at her over Nicholas's shoulder. There was blood on his face, smoke behind him, ruin around them, but his eyes were clear. "I am done letting dead men write our future," he said. Clara touched his hand. "Then we write it carefully." His fingers turned around hers. "And if I don't know how, then you learn." Weeks later, New York still whispered their names. Victor Sloane's empire collapsed in courtrooms and sealed hearings. Luca Moretti disappeared into a prison system Dante did not control, but did not pity. The rival families retreated, not out of peace, but out of survival. The Federal Reserve repaired its broken glass. The financial system steadied. But Clara did not return to her old counter. She resigned quietly, not because she was afraid, because she no longer wanted a life built entirely around hiding. She used her father's recovered assets to establish a foundation for children of witnesses, informants, and families destroyed by organized crime. Nicholas became the first child under her guardianship, though everyone at the Moretti estate understood he had already become more than that. As for Dante, he did not become gentle, not suddenly, not completely. He still entered rooms like a warning. Men still lowered their voices when his name was spoken. He still carried darkness in his silence. But something changed. He stopped, standing outside Clara's door like a guard, and began knocking like a man asking permission. Sometimes she let him in. Sometimes she made him wait. He always waited. On the first snow of December, Clara returned to the old Federal Reserve building for one final private hearing. When she stepped out at dusk, the city was glowing gold beneath winter lights. Dante waited across the street. No armored convoy. No army. Just him. In a black coat, holding an umbrella. Clara crossed toward him slowly. "You know," she said, "this is where you threatened to burn down New York." His mouth softened. "Technically, I threatened its financial system. That's not better." "No." She looked up at him. "Would you have done it?" Dante held her gaze. "For the bill?" "No. For me?" He did not answer. He did not need to. Snow collected on his shoulders. Clara slipped her hand into his. This time there were no cameras, no alarms, no blood-stained dollar between them. Only the city, the snow, and the dangerous man who had once mistaken obsession for protection and was learning, slowly, painfully, to love without locking every door. Dante drew a small frame from inside his coat. Inside were the two halves of the $1 bill, sealed together behind glass. The blood-stained half, the clean half, the torn edges aligned perfectly. Clara stared at it. "Why did you bring this?" His voice was low. "Because this was where your father's story ended." He turned the frame over. On the back, engraved in silver, were 4 words. "Ours begins after truth." Clara's eyes filled. Dante watched her like her tears could undo him. "I have no right to ask you for anything," he said. "No," she whispered. "You don't." He nodded once, accepting the wound. Then Clara stepped closer. "But you can ask anyway." For the first time since she had known him, Dante Moretti looked afraid. Not of death, not of enemies, of hope. "Stay," he said. The word was rough, barely controlled. "Not because of a vow. Not because of your father. Not because I protected you. Stay because you choose me, even knowing what I am." Clara looked at the man before her. The monster, the protector, the liar, the shield, the boy her father had saved, the man who had nearly destroyed a city to keep her breathing. "I choose the man you're becoming," she said. Dante's eyes closed like the words struck somewhere deeper than bone. Then he kissed her under the falling snow in the same city where everything had begun with a blood-stained dollar bill and a 10-minute threat. This time, there were no alarms, no countdown, no hidden cameras, only Clara's hand against his heart, and Dante holding her as if love was no longer a weakness, but the one truth powerful enough to survive them both. And high above Manhattan, behind the windows of a quiet mansion overlooking the river, a little boy placed a white rose beside an old framed dollar bill while the most feared mafia boss in New York finally came home.